Now, let's go back home and the notorious Bruce Highway in Queensland. Well, that's been the subject of a huge amount of funding back and forth. It's going to get funding regardless of the upcoming election result after Peter Dutton declared that he would match Labor's $7.2 billion pledge, but with a catch. The opposition leader has said that he's going to ban the controversial union, the CFMEU, from all future highway projects. Now, let's bring in tonight's panel. Joining me is Small Business Women Australia CEO Amanda Rose and the Herald Sun senior writer Patrick Carlyon. Thank you both so much for joining me tonight. Amanda, let's start with you here. This is a major win for Queenslanders one way or the other, but it sounds to me here that Peter Dutton may have wedged Labor against its union base with his commitment around the CFMEU.
That's pretty smart. And I think we need to start by saying the CFMEU is different to most unions. I like to say that in a league of their own, treat them separately. And the Master Builders Association has said that, you know, essentially when they're involved, costs go up to nearly 30%. So that $7.2 billion probably would be a lot more if Labor was bringing in the CFMEU involved, or if they're involved in, you know, the creation of it. So I think it was a strategic move. I think it was smart. It's going to happen either way. But let's face it, after what we've seen of what that particular union has done, they shouldn't be involved. Because it's gone to the days where it's about protecting the rights of the worker, and now it's, well, put it this way, if you watch The Sopranos, that's what it's like.
Indeed. Now, Patrick, the thing I'm curious about here, though, is that Albanese has already kicked off the campaign in this sort of phony war sort of state. How does Peter Dutton, this was a very clever move, I think, that he's made here on this, but how does Peter Dutton wind up being able to compete on this ground where he doesn't have the power of the purse? He's not even, you know, they're not even in caretaker mode yet. What does he do to stay ahead of this juggernaut of money, this fire hose of money that Anthony Albanese appears determined to unleash on the electorate?
Well, I agree with Amanda. Certainly on this one, he's been very clever with this one. And the CFMEU thing in Victoria is going to really matter in a state that, for the first time in a long time in an election, it's going to be a battleground state. And the ill will towards the CFMEU down here, if you use that 30% number, is, you know, for the big build, which is all the major projects around Victoria, it's worth $100 billion. Now, if you use that 30%, it's $30 billion in a state that's basically broke. I think that was very clever. This is going to be the longest federal election campaign of all time. It's certainly going to feel like it. And Albo's going to keep doing this. And as you would expect, but look, I think Dutton, to be fair, that was a very savvy response today with the CFMEU aspect to it. And look, he'll be playing catch up all the way along, I'm sure.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, listen, we've covered an awful lot of serious news, so I want to have a little bit of fun here this evening because the campaign fight is continuing with Anthony Albanese claiming, get this here, that he is better placed than Peter Dutton to forge a productive relationship with incoming U.S. President Donald Trump. Amanda Rose, do you think that this has any basis in what we would call a shared reality, or is the Prime Minister peddling a bit of that misinformation he's so upset about?
Well, put it this way, he doesn't have a good relationship with the people of his own country, so that's kind of a testament of building relationships and his skills of doing that. But what he's trying to do is distance himself from being attached to the Democrats. So he's trying to say, we're not like the Democrats, we're not that party, we're actually kind of more like Trump, we get along with Trump, so their people won't turn on the Labor government in the election. Now, you know, the reality is Dutton is a conservative Liberal and more on the right, so I actually think he will have a better relationship with Trump because of that. But let's face it, you both have to have a good relationship with leaders of other countries, but using that as a political tool for the campaign is a bit odd.
Yeah, and Patrick, it seems like right now Anthony Albanese is kind of odd man out in global sort of Western politics. It seems like, you know, Justin Trudeau has just fallen on his sword. They're very likely going to get a Conservative Prime Minister in Canada later this year. You know, all across Europe, Keir Starmer is in a lot of trouble for a variety of reasons. People just aren't buying this sort of old establishment left-wing liberalism, are they, anymore? And it seems to be odd that Anthony Albanese would think that he could stand against this tide.
Well, look, it's interesting, James, because China only about a month ago was holding up Albanese as the white knight of the American allies to sort of put pressure on not to bring in these tariffs. And I think you're right. I mean, it really has swung in the last 12 months, most obviously with Donald Trump. Saying that he's going to be friends with China, that he's a better bet with China and with the US, does sound very hollow at the moment. It's not sort of ground that you would sort of think he would try to avoid rather than try and take on at this stage, because, as Amanda said, politically, Dutton's more aligned to Trump than Albanese's ever going to be. And Albanese was teeing off, in years gone past about Donald Trump, sort of, making all sorts of suggestions and criticisms, which makes his life a lot harder. I would have thought he'd be trying to avoid talking about these sorts of things right now.